Hi, I'm Bob Canote and welcome back to the Camp Chaos Chronicles. Kind of a big day here today. We're going to try to get a project up and running so we can move on to other things. And that project would be that junk right there. Dang it. Before we get started today, I'd like to take a couple of minutes and make a cup of coffee and explain to you what's going to be going on this year. Now, if you remember from last year's video, the 2021 intro, we had a lot of projects that we had planned. And we made those plans when we weren't particularly busy, but we did get busy. And so we maybe touched on about a third of those projects. And even when we decided that we were going to go to the 2-week format, the short Tuesday extra on Tuesday and then the larger video on Friday, we found that we really couldn't get to everything. And so what we decided to do this year is one video on Friday, do the best job we can with that one, and film what is actually just going on around here. Maybe get into some of those projects from last year, but mainly shoot videos of the race car stuff that we're doing because we want to get those two cars, the track car and the champ car, on track this year. And also some of the maintenance stuff that we do all the time around here. Just owning the number of cars I do, there's a lot of maintenance involved. So that's one point I'd like to make. Another one is that if you're going to get into this Jaguar project, you really need help, particularly if you're pretty ignorant going in. And I found that Facebook groups have a lot of people that are enthusiasts, but also have a lot of knowledge that can help you with your project. So, and in particular on this one, with the engine stand wiring, which I'm a little light on knowledge on, there's a Facebook friend named Paul Cobras that got my head on straight initially with the project, and then it just kind of naturally flowed from there. So I think it's a really important thing for you to be aware of. So we got a lot of work to do today. I think we need to get started. So what we have here is what I hope to be a fully operational Jaguar V-12 test stand for fuel injected engines. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Now, the problem we've got right now is twofold. First of all, outside of that garage door right there is a pretty good snowstorm right now, and I need to have that door open in order to try running this thing. And I'm not going to fill the shop full of snow. The other thing is, I checked the oil on this thing, and when the car left my place to go to the shop in Green Bay, it had a full crankcase of oil, but now that it's back, the oil has been drained out of it. So I need to put oil in it, and all I've got is a couple of cases of GTX 20W50, which is a lot better oil than this thing deserves. So what I'm going to have to do is wait till tomorrow till I can get out when it's not snowing. It's supposed to be a nice sunshiny type day tomorrow. That'll be a good day to open that shop door and actually try to get this thing running. But let's take a look at what I did to get it to this point. Now, the first thing you'll notice right off the bat is we got some color coding going on here. And what I had done in order to better understand what was going on here, because some of it was a little bit confusing, I stripped all the electrical tape off of these harnesses, and I had to cover it back up with something, so I put a different color on each one of the harnesses. The yellow one is for the fuel injection, red is for ignition, and there's a green one here that is not fully wrapped yet because I wanted to illustrate a point. And so that's what this is about. And it really made it much easier for me to really visualize what's happening, because automotive electrical to this point hasn't been my thing. But this has been a project that has really moved me a couple of steps up the ladder in my knowledge of this stuff. So let's start with the yellow one here. There is the ECU for the fuel injection. At this point, that's where I took the 8 feet of wire out that runs through the cabin of the car just to kind of compress everything. So as I said, the ECU comes down here. You've got the fuel pump relay, the main relay, you've got all the grounds. All this stuff is located, including the ECU, is located by the right rear wheel well in the trunk of the car. So it's all in one space. It's kind of odd that they'd run some grounds all the way from the front of the car, about 14 feet away to the rear, but okay, maybe it's a production thing. So it comes down here, goes to this point where it splits. And part of this goes down to the O2 sensors. From here, it goes forward to the fuel injection harness, which I didn't bother to take out because it's kind of congested down there. And then it also goes forward to the fuel injection resistor pack, which keeps power levels to the level that they should be to keep burning stuff out. And this then goes over, and we've got a ground here. We've also got the high load vacuum valve and also a mechanical micro switch here, which the turntable actuates. And then it goes to the other side, and we've got the O2 sensor over there, and then it comes forward. You got a couple of sensors, one for incoming air temperature on the snorkel of the air filter, and then this that goes down, and that connector right there is for water temperature, coolant temperature. And that about covers that. Now the red one is for the ignition. This is the ECU. This is under the, this is in the right-hand footwell of the cabin. And the harness goes down, it goes underneath there. And it's pretty simple. You've got this circular connector right here, which hooks up with power off of the engine harness, which we'll get to here in a little bit. And it then runs forward. This is the infamous speed signal that goes to the fuel injection ECU. It doesn't fire up until it gets that signal. So this is the one that is said to have killed hundreds of cars. That's why so many of these cars ended up with Chevy small blocks. And then of course you got the two coils, one on top, one on bottom. There's two, one for each bank, and it comes forward, and you've got a connection here for the front crankshaft position sensor, and then it comes forward and goes to the amplifiers, again, one for each bank. And we also have a couple other branches that come off of the red one. We have this that comes over here, and we've got a coolant temperature sensor for the ignition system. And we got that thing, which I have no clue what it is. I'm sure we'll figure it out eventually. And then back here, we've got a couple of things. First of all, we've got the connector for the crankshaft position sensor, which is down there. And then we've got a branch that comes off and goes to this stuff. This goes to a harness that comes out of the left rear corner of the engine compartment. And this thing right here, another component that I'm not exactly sure what it does. It's a little micro switch. Now, we've also got the green wiring harness. And the green one works with all this stuff that is up in the front of the car, the right rear corner of the engine compartment. This is the starter relay and the interrupter relay. And this stuff goes down here. And this is some of the stuff that made it kind of confusing, because these wires, I'd be trying to check to figure out, what wire does what. And some of these wires would go forward and they'd come to one of these things like resistors. You see that little symbol right there, the little zigzaggy thing? That means it's a resistor. And then right there, that is the international symbol for a diode. And so if you're wondering if you're going to a wiring diagram and you're wondering where these resistors are, well, they're all wrapped up inside of the wiring harness. And a lot of times these things will go forward to one of these things, and then they'll turn around and come back. So it wasn't real clear what was going on until I actually unwrapped the harness. So anyway, we've got this bulkhead fitting right here, which is on the right side of the right-hand footwell. This is sort of the sheet metal on the body of the vehicle. This is the power line that goes to the ignition switch that turns on the ignition and therefore the fuel injection, and the starter relay. And then it comes forward here, and this is actually, from this point on, it connects through this connector right there to the rest of the engine harness. And the rest of the engine harness is what powers up the ECU for the ignition system. And that's pretty much it. Well, we're getting ready to add some oil to this junk, and that brings up a tech tip that I think you find interesting, and it has to do with this brand of oil, Penn Grade 20W50. Okay, this is the oil that I run in my track car. It's partial synthetic, and I've had this recommended to me by a number of people, and I'm happy with it. However, we're not going to add 12 quarts of this to that engine there because it's in pretty bad shape and it needs to come apart anyway. Now, this has to do with the bottle that this stuff comes in. What you do is you take and cut it like that, and it just so happens that this end right here is the same thread as the hole that the filler cap fits in. Now, the way it is right now, you got the timing chain in the way, and you end up getting some skinny little funnel that you have to hold the funnel and hold the bottle as you're filling it. This thing right here, you thread it in, you unbottle or uncap your bottle, and just drop it in and go and uncap the next one. Works really slick. The oil that we're actually going to use is what I found down at the local Tractor Supply outlet, and it is Traveler 15W40. You ever heard of that brand? Me neither, but it was 21 bucks for 2.5 gallons. That's about as good as this engine deserves. We just need to get oil in the crankcase so that we know that there's some lubrication in there. This stuff is going to be coming out again almost immediately anyway. So we're getting close. We're going to give this a shot here today. I've done everything that I know how to do. When I turn the key to on, 12 volts shows up where it's supposed to. Got the fuel system primed. I know that I've got fuel up here at the fuel rail. I've got down below there the yellow puke bucket. If this thing does have a bad head gasket, it's going to be pressurizing the system, so we don't want that all over the floor. Got a fire extinguisher, the pin pulled down there, and I'm kind of excited. A little hesitant at the same time, but here we go. Now, as usual, it's a good news, bad news story. The bad news first. This engine is junk. It's got what I think is a pretty severe rod knock. It had 50 psi oil pressure when I first started it, and it didn't take long for it to get down to about 25, 20, at about what I would estimate 2,000 RPM. So that's the bad news. The good news is it runs pretty well on this here stand. And that's what this whole point is. Ignore the engine. We got everything set up so that we can put rebuilt engines on here and check them out, make sure everything's right. So I mean, that's what I was after. I was kind of hoping this engine would be a little bit better than it is, but, you know, I got a shed full. There's room for one more. So if you like these kind of videos, like, subscribe, follow us on social media, and maybe leave a comment down below so that we know we do better. So we'll see you the next time on the Camp Chaos Chronicles. Take it down lower so you can hear it. Yep, that's broke.